Hi everyone, Jenna McPhee here. So today we're going to be having Peter Ashley talk again about the 84th Regiment of Foot, who's going to be talking about recruitment today.
Thank you. The recruitment for the 2nd Battalion, 84th Regiment of Foot actually began in 1775 when they were given the beating order by General Gage, who commanded the British Army in North America. And at that time, they were not called the 84th Regiment of Foot, they were called the Royal Highland Emigrants. Actually, they had several names that they were considering, but that's the one they stuck with. Once the beating order was given, then advertisements were put. This, for example, is a page out of the Nova Scotia Gazette and Weekly Chronicle from October 3rd, 1775. And it was an advertisement that appeared in many newspapers, and it stated, "Conditions to be given to such soldiers as will engage in the Royal Highland Emigrants. They are to engage during the present troubles in America only. Each soldier to have 200 acres of land in any province in North America he shall think proper. The King to pay the patent fees, the Secretary's fees, Surveyors General, besides 20 years of free of quit rent. Each married man gets 50 acres for his wife and 50 acres for each child on the same terms. And as a gratuity, they will be given 1 gold guinea. And according to my research, I don't think any of them ever received one of these gold guineas, which was the equivalent of about 21 shillings, which is more than what most of them would have made in a year. So it says, all those gentlemen who are willing to accept of the above conditions are desired to repair with all convenient haste to Halifax, Nova Scotia, where they will be kindly entertained, receive pay, provisions, arms, clothing, and all accoutrements fitting for a gentleman soldier, by applying to Captain Alexander MacDonald of the above regiment. God save the King." Principal recruitment began in Boston, which is where the significant officers were located at the time, namely John Small and Alan McLean, who would be, Alan McLean would be the colonel of the regiment, and John Small would be the major. Recruitment began immediately. Alexander MacDonald, it is mentioned in the newspaper article, he actually had an estate on Staten Island in New York, and he began immediately to leave his estate, travel through New York and to the Mohawk Valley, where he recruited former soldiers from the French and Indian War who were Highlanders. Other recruitment was being conducted by Captain Alan MacDonald, who was known as Kingsborough. He recruited in North Carolina. Captain John MacDonald was given a commission, and even though he was never served in the British Army before, but he had a significant Scottish settlement in what was then called St. John Island. It's Prince Edward Island today. He recruited there, as did Captain Ranald McKinnon in Prince Edward Island and Nova Scotia, and various officers recruited in Newfoundland as well. When the regiment was formed in 1775, they sent Captain Murdoch McLean back to Scotland, and he recruited some soldiers there as well. But his primary mission in going there was to obtain all the materials to create the uniforms, the armament, and accoutrements, which accoutrements would be the belting. Enlistment forms also promised, and there's part of the display includes enlistment forms, and it also said that the bearer would be entitled to a proportion of 200 acres of vacant or forfeited lands for every man or head of family, together with 50 acres in addition to every member of the family. And again, it reiterated the fact that they would not have to pay any quit rents or anything like that. Considering that many of the people who were being enlisted, this was a promise of, for the Scottish soldiers, it was a promise that they would be able to wear Highland garb. And for most of the recruits, it was a promise that they could be fed, get pay, even though it was only for a private, it was only 6 pence per day. And from that, they would take away 4 pence to help pay for all of this. But it also promised that the families, any of them who had families, would also be taken care of. After the war actually began, when Captain Alexander MacDonald left Staten Island, he was going through Long Island, New York, and a major battle had just been fought there on August 27th, 1776. And Alexander MacDonald recruited somewhere around in the vicinity of 170 soldiers, American soldiers, who had been captured during the battle. They were all immediately brought to Nova Scotia, and as far as how the conditions for the recruit, even though the advertisement said they would be entertained and fed and paid, this is a letter that Captain Alexander MacDonald had written from Halifax to Major Small at New York in November 1776. This was right after the shipload of all the new recruits arrived at Halifax. He said, "We arrived here safe after a long, tedious, and disagreeable passage for bad weather and contrary winds. Some of the recruits died on the passage and since their landing, to the number of about 20 men. And I am afraid a great many more will die, they having contracted a malignant fever on board the ships, being served with bad provisions and stinking water, and almost naked for want of clothes. We have about 58 sick now." So it wasn't all fun and games for the new recruits that were brought to Nova Scotia. When they arrived, it was the end of November, and of course that was the beginning of winter, and they suffered terribly because when they arrived, the first place they got off the ships was on George's Island, because that's where they had to go first to make sure that they weren't carrying any diseases over into the city.